2-4, derivatives of two basic trig functions. So the first one we're going to talk about is the sine. All right, what the derivative of sine is. So our proof, if you remember to find a derivative, it's the limit of f of x plus h minus f of x over h. So that would equal the limit as h approaches 0 of the sine x of x plus h minus the sine x all over h. And now, if you were to expand this, there is actually a rule to expand this. If you were to expand it, it would be the limit of the sine of x cosine of h plus the cosine of x sine of h minus the sine of x all over h. Now, since we really don't need these parentheses, I'm going to rewrite this. Limit as h approaches 0 all over h of the sine of x, sine of x cosine h. Now I'm going to bring this minus sine x over here because we have a sine x right here, and I can factor it out and it'll make the problem a lot easier. Plus the cosine of x sine h. Now factor out that sine of x, so this is the limit as h approaches 0 of the sine of x times the cosine of x minus 1 plus the cosine of x sine of h all divided by h. Alright, now let's split this into two fractions to make this easier to look at. So we have the limit as h approaches 0 of the sine of x times the cosine of x minus 1 divided by h. I'm sorry, that's an h. I changed my h to an x for some reason. This should be h minus 1, and this here should be an h as well. Plus the cosine of x times the sine of h over h. Now, you remember cosine of h minus 1 over h, well, that equals 0. Sine of h over h, well, that equals 1. So now if you look, it's the sine of x times 0, so all of this is gone. This is 1, so you don't have to worry about it. So all we're left is that guy. So the derivative of the sine of x dx equals cosine of x. Alright. So that's the long drawn out proof way. All you have to remember is the derivative of sine is cosine. That's all you have to remember. Alright, now let's talk about the cosine. What is the derivative of cosine? Well, I could also go through this long drawn out proof like I did the first time. I just wanted to show you that, so if you happen to see it maybe on the AP exam or somewhere, you'll know what they're talking about and you'll be able to complete it. So the derivative of cosine of x dx equals sine of x. And actually it's not positive sine, it's the negative sine of x. Alright. So if you remember kind of a little flow chart, the derivative of sine is cosine. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. And the derivative of negative sine is negative cosine. And the derivative of negative cosine is positive sine, and you repeat the process. Alright? So if I asked you a question like, what is the ninth derivative of sine of x? What you can do is you can physically count. So we're starting here. So this is the first derivative, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. So the ninth derivative of the sine of x dx equals cosine of x. That's all fine if you have smaller numbers and you can count, but what if I asked you what the 98th derivative of sine x was? All right, this one you couldn't simply count out, it would take you way too long. All right, so what you do is you do the remainder thing like we did for i's. You take the number, divide by 4, and then whatever the remainder is what you're going to go with. All right, so 4 into 98, 4 goes into 9 twice, that's 8, so that's 1, bring down the 8, 4 goes into 18 4 times, that's 16 with a remainder of 2. Since your remainder is 2, that means this acts like a second derivative. Oops. Means it acts like a second derivative. So you'd go up to your flowchart and you would find the second derivative of sine, and that would be your answer. So first derivative, second derivative, negative sine. So that's your answer. All right. And also, just like we did with the i's, if I ask what the derivative of 106, 2011 of the cosine of x dx of that ridiculous number. Remember, when you're dividing by 4, all you're worried about is the last 2 digits. So 4 into 11, 4 goes into 1, 0 times, 4 goes into 11 twice, that's 8, remainder 3, so it acts like a third derivative. So the third derivative of cosine is 1, 2, 3, so it equals sine of x. All right, not too bad. I don't think so anyway. Now, an easy way to look at this, normally, oh, there's that again. Normally, when you look at your calculator, you'll notice your sine button comes first, and your cosine button comes second. All right. Well, as long as you remember that you start with sine, the derivative of sine is cosine. Then what you do is you come full circle back around, but this time you multiply it by negative. So you start here, positive, positive, derivative of cosine, negative sine, derivative of negative sine, negative cosine, derivative of negative cosine, come back around, multiply it by negative, you get a positive sine. All right, so if you kind of remember the flow there, and you kind of go in a counterclockwise rotation. Positive, positive, come around, negative, negative, come back around, positive, positive. You'll remember your order. All right. So I'm gonna put your ticket and dough on the same page so you have that neat little trick right there. I know we haven't worked any problems, but you should still have enough information to do this ticket in the door. All right. What I want you to do is okay, so if f of x equals 3x to the 5th minus 4 cosine x, I want to know what is f prime of x. Remember, f prime that stands for your first derivative. All right, that stands for your first derivative. Remember, we went over that in the last video. For a little refresher, if f of x is x squared, then f prime of x would be the derivative, the first derivative of this, which would be 2x. So what I want is I want f prime of x of 3x to the 5th minus 4 cosine x. All right, so make sure you have this ready when you come in the door tomorrow. Good luck.